right.
I'm still waiting for the moment where the little Zoom recording in progress voice becomes less little Zoom robot and more actual
I don't actually hear it anymore. It must be in my settings where I can just not be notified by it.
Oh, interesting. Maybe I just pretend like I hear it in my brain because I'm expecting it.
Maybe. Everyone joining in, we'll get started in just a couple minutes.
Okay, so in a private chat, Kevin sends me a message, good news for you, and then stops typing. I said, great, I like good news. What is it? And then he just totally disappeared.
Uh-huh.
Like, what?
And this is why he's part of the scavenger hunt. All right, one more minute.
Yeah.
Are you happy with what you got?
Uh-oh.
So apparently the Sentinel just had a story, breaking news. Floridians will soon be able to buy larger, much larger bottles of wine in retail stores.
That is a piece of news for Wendy.
Thank you, sir. That was great.
All right. I see it's 1:10. Should we give it one more minute to see if
We should
people are going
probably
to come
give
in?
it 1 minute just in case, because I think when we
Yeah, if
see
the trivia is going right up until 1:10, people might need a minute or two to switch
it
over.
is.
Sounds good. So we will wait
And
another
we've got
minute
just
and a
enough
half.
flexibility that we can probably pull something together.
Oh, yeah. Welcome in. We will get started in about 1 minute.
And hey, this could be a very private session for Kevin, Emma, and Bren.
Everyone's coming in now. Welcome, everyone. We'll get started in about 1 minute. We realize you're all probably coming from trivia, so want to give you a chance to get your audio set up before we kick things off.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, I see lots of folks coming in now.
Welcome in, Charlotte. All right, I see we have about 10 people in the room, so I'm going to slowly get things started. Hello, everyone. I am Lily Dubach, and I am the textbook affordability librarian at the University of Central Florida. So what does that mean? It means I lead the library efforts in our Affordable Instructional Materials Initiative. I've been in this role for the past 2.5 years or so. Before then, I was involved in OER projects, open educational resources projects, and other affordability efforts as well through my other roles at UCF. I'll now turn it over to Wendy Howard to introduce herself.
Sure. Hi, I'm Wendy Howard, director of our Pegasus Innovation Lab for digital learning. And we're more of an incubator for digital learning initiatives. But specific to this program, this presentation, our team is responsible for leading or project managing the affordability initiative at our university at the moment. So you'll hear more about that as we get rolling. And I'm going to allow Rebecca to introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Rebecca McNulty. I'm an instructional designer at the Center for Distributed Learning, and I work with the instructional designers who support open education and resources for our faculty. So,
Thank you, Wendy and Rebecca, for joining me in this presentation as we delve into what it takes to develop a textbook affordability program. Our session is we're going to introduce some broad concepts first, real quick, kind of go over some statewide and national support that may be good for you to know about. We'll also touch on what the UCF experience has been with our textbook affordability program. And then we have tips for you. We have 6 of them. And if you notice closely, they spell out afford. So that's the acronym of choice today. And then at the end, we will save a good bit of time for an activity using Padlet. Also, please note that the background images that we have created, we used both Adobe Firefly and Dolly 3 to make those. Any other content is licensed by CC BY, so feel free to reuse some stuff that we write in this if you want to give a similar presentation at your institution. Getting things started, why would you consider a textbook affordability program? Well, your institution may already have one. You may have pieces of one. But the main thing that kind of kicks this off is thinking about how incredibly expensive textbooks have gotten. If you look at the chart on the left, we see the comparison between the inflation rate and some consumer goods and services. And if you look near the top, we see hospital services, college tuition and fees, and then college textbooks being really high. So we see college textbooks right around the 160% level. So they really have gotten quite expensive. We also noticed that that line has kind of wiggled a little bit. And I spoke with the economist who created this graph, Mark J. Perry, and he does talk about how affordability initiatives such as the open initiatives for open educational resources, that those happened that number of years ago and started really gaining momentum. And that may be what's impacting this graph. Now in Florida, we have the FLVC student textbook survey that goes out every couple years to survey students, and the latest one from 22 surveyed about 13,000 students. And we get a glimpse into seeing what do students do when those textbooks are too expensive. And a couple statistics from there show that just over half of students do not purchase a textbook because of cost, or they have had instances of that where they have chosen not to buy a required textbook because of cost. And then that decision plus some other decisions, maybe it's delaying purchasing a textbook, it can result in them earning a poor grade, or about 19% of these Florida students failing a course. So the cost of the textbooks or students not getting them really does impact their success. Here at UCF, we also survey students, and we have surveyed a little over 9,500 of them, and our numbers align pretty well with the FLVC survey. So for ours, 58% did not purchase a textbook due to cost at one time or another. And then what's even higher than that, 75% of those students noted at one time or more delaying the purchase of a textbook due to cost. But as I said, cost is just one factor here. So that may be your starting point for statistics, but what is really important here is how access to course materials impacts student success. So we talked about some statistics. It impacts their grade, the drop, fail, withdrawal rates, how much the students could engage in the course and learn from the course. And then I just want to briefly note that resources in this presentation do come from the March 2023 TOPkit Digest that Rebecca is going to put into the chat. I want to quickly note that because of this momentum for textbook affordability initiatives and related initiatives for open or open educational resources, there are a number of policies or statutes or other supports out there and information you should be aware of. Statewide, please take some time to review the Florida statute listed here, because this gives you a good overview on what is required by the law here in the state as far as textbook affordability and transparency. FLVC that I mentioned before, they have Open Florida, a guide and initiatives related to that. Nationally, you can look at Spark's OER State Policy Tracker. Federally, there is a grant program. And then globally, UNESCO offers support. And then you can join the national and international conversations through the Open Education Conference or right here. So I have a couple questions on this slide for you if you are able to put something into the chat. We are curious, what is your institution? Where are you from? And do you have a textbook affordability program yourself? So those are our two questions for you. I see someone from UCF. Yeah, that's kind of a given answer that we do. So thank you for putting that there. I will move on from this slide, but again, the questions are, what is your institution and do you have a textbook affordability program? And by the way, these slides are available in the conference platform. I did put those into that folder. So Martha noted that they're at UCF, and yes, we do have a affordable instructional materials initiative. Let me just touch on that and kind of our history real quick. So it started with sort of a grassroots effort, right? So a couple librarians and instructional designers got together and thought we really need to help support these efforts. I was actually a part-time staff member at that time, kind of helping with that too around that time, and it culminated in the development of kind of the first OER, which was an anthology of medieval literature. After that, the efforts gained momentum and formed a larger initiative recognized by the Office of the Provost called Affordable Instructional Materials Initiative. And in that, we have 4 pillars. Open educational resources. So those are resources, whether they are videos or other content or full textbook length materials that are openly licensed to permit retaining, remixing, reusing, etc. And then we also have a pillar for library source materials, which I lead, representing the library there, which is to match library ebooks and other materials that we have that are free to students that courses can use. We also have affordability counts, where we support the efforts for faculty recognition if they have either free or affordable materials used in their course. And then we also have the First Day program. And at UCF, this is an inclusive access program that is a little different from other institutions because it is opt-in. So students have to choose to be part of it, and it is a material by material level of choice rather than a flat fee, all in or all out type of model. And again, that is a discount program and not free material. So we have a wide range of partnerships in AIM. This brings us to the first tip that I will touch on briefly. So if you do not have a textbook affordability program, or if you don't have a fully kind of representative one, but if you do have one too, you need to continually think about your campus. You need to think about what's going on at your campus and what's going on externally and what may impact your efforts. So as you think about that, consider what policies are out there, consider the statutes, consider regulations and contracts. I'm thinking specifically about contracts. Be aware of what your bookstore contract says. Now, I was able to gain access to ours simply by asking our business center. I know some other institutions can only seem to gain access by it doing a sunshine request. So there are various ways you can gain access to that to kind of understand what the landscape is at your institution. Also understanding, like I mentioned before, if you have an inclusive access program, depending on what type of program you have, that may impact your efforts as well. Now, at first, these things may be seen as challenges to your efforts, but they can lead to amazing connections. And you can kind of, that can lead to changes depending on who you can kind of partner with and form an understanding of your efforts going forward. And speaking of connections, I will now turn it over to Wendy.
Well, thank you. So tip number 2 is focusing on aligning your team goals, communication, and workflow. So picking up where Lily left off with our institutional context at UCF, originally there was a lot of great work happening around the university, but it was all very siloed and not everybody knew what others were doing. And so in 2018, as she mentioned, we brought everybody together under the provost direction and created a strategic initiative to really align our efforts around textbook affordability. And we assigned a project manager to help orchestrate and coordinate all of those efforts. And so that's where my team came into play. But it was really important to bring together all these different representatives from around campus to align our efforts and try to tackle this together, all in support of helping our faculty members implement more affordable solutions in their classes, eventually in service of our students. So originally when we got together, we spent a bit of time putting together an overarching goal, and our high-level goal for the initiative was to increase access to course materials and emphasize social mobility to better eliminate obstacles that negatively impact student success, access, and academic progress. So that was our big overarching goal for the whole initiative. But as Lily described, there are 4 key pillars of the initiative, and each one had its own SMART goal that was a little bit more measurable and specific. And so I can pull them up later if anyone's curious. But you get the sense that we all tried to come together under one umbrella, one overarching goal for our efforts. And so that included bringing together, obviously, instructional designers and librarians were at the core of all of this effort before we even joined as a full group. But it really helped to bring in that project manager to align everyone's efforts and help get us all pointed in the same direction. And by working together, we then found other support units across the university that were also either doing some of this work, or faculty members just intuitively went there for initial assistance. So places like our Faculty Center for Teaching and Learning, our bookstore, we partner with them and they're part of this initiative. All of this was under the umbrella and the recognition of the provost office. So they gave us our charge, and members of the provost office are responsible for the state level reporting. And so they're part of the team. I'll circle back around communications. By having everybody together under one umbrella, that allowed us to synchronize our communication. So we had one unified message going out across the university, and then also external to UCF. When we talk about what we're doing, we now have some aligned communications through this initiative. So everybody's together on the same page and contributes to the same messaging. One thing that's relatively new, though, is we have been able to make some inroads with our Student Government Association. I wish we had done that sooner, but we have a connection with them as well so that their voice is heard in these efforts. And they help us coordinate with student organizations outside of SGA who are also very passionate about this work. So it takes a village. And it takes bringing everybody together under one common goal for this to really proceed at scale. So with that, I am going to hand it over to Rebecca for tip number 3.
So tip number 3 starts to bring together that collaboration between instructional designers and librarians a little bit more specifically. So we broke this into 2. The first is to facilitate opportunities for instructors to adopt OER. And this is going to require some training and support to find and search through appropriate databases to find the resources that already exist, and then evaluate those resources based on the criteria that the instructor for a specific course is looking for their course materials. So as I said, this is where librarians and instructional designers can work together really well, because librarians have the expertise to really guide instructors through that search process, point them in all of the right directions, and help them to know what exists already. And then when they find that perfect resource or that resource that works most perfectly for their course, they can come to their instructional designer who can then help them to incorporate those resources into their course design and make sure that they align in ways that meet those course objectives. Otherwise, of course, there are a ton of public-facing repositories and resources that instructors can look at on their own, and those are all linked into the TOPkit digest that Lily created and that we've linked to earlier. And as a general rule, it's where we like to start. We can probably move into the second. And that brings us to facilitating opportunities for instructors to also adapt and author OER. And we broke these into 2 slides for a reason, because these come with really different lifts, especially in terms of the support needs that they require. So if an instructor hasn't found exactly what they're looking for after they start that search process, they can start with adopting a new resource to something that they need to achieve. So the open license introduces the freedom to adapt the things that exist, which is really powerful, but that also comes with certain needs in terms of course support. So this slide is going to emphasize some of the things that we need to take into account for that adaption process, and as we move to something closer to authoring, if someone wants to complete something completely new. So luckily for all of us, there is a really strong community surrounding the open movement. And so some of these resources exist to help facilitate this process. I'm going to drop into the chat Abby Elder's OER Starter Kit, which has a whole creation section to help guide this project management process. And there are also a lot of different support strategies available. I think we have someone from UNF here who has a really great incentive program. So I would love to chat about that as we move into some of our Q&A portion a little bit later. But some of those compensation strategies are also linked in that TOPkit Digest article, and those can include both financial and time support ways of giving instructors the space they need to make the customized adaptions or create the resources that really take a specific student account into the institutional context. And that brings us back to Lily for tip number 4.
Thank you, Rebecca. So OER is not always feasible. Sometimes a faculty member or a department may decide that, okay, either now's not the right time to adopt OER for a variety of reasons, or maybe some does not exist in the certain topic area. And that's where we do advocate for library sourced materials to be utilized. Specifically, library sourced ebooks are a common type of material adopted. Those can be really quick. You can look at a list of adopted textbooks for courses. You can usually get this from your bookstore if you have a good relationship with them. And then librarians can take that and compare it to the library catalog and see how many matches exist. Now, I do want to say one thing, that if you don't take away anything from this slide other than this, please remember this. If you are not communicating with a librarian, please do so, because you can't simply tell a faculty or be a faculty member yourself who chooses, oh, I found this ebook in the library catalog, I'm going to use it for my course and not have the students buy a textbook anymore, I'll just give them this link. That is great as long as those ebooks are owned and as long as the license permits the whole class to use it at once. And sometimes it takes a librarian to really dig into the data to make sure that ebook suits that class appropriately. So again, the license is very important. Does the library own that ebook? Or perhaps they subscribe to it. And if the library only subscribes to it, that subscription could suddenly end mid-semester. Not too long ago, the publisher and platform Wiley pulled about 1,300 ebooks out of their subscription platform mid-semester, and it caused a lot of issues at other institutions. We were not impacted by it too much because we proactively check for that, and we give faculty warnings if they are using something on a subscription. Beyond that, other things to think about for library sourced ebooks would be the access level, like I mentioned. So you really want to emphasize books that are unlimited user. That's what you call it. So an unlimited number of students could access it at once so that the whole class can rely on it. Otherwise, some ebooks do have limited user access, meaning only one or maybe 3 students can use it at once, and that it doesn't function too well in classes. The best ones out there are called DRM free, meaning they are digital rights management free. That means that a student or faculty or anyone can download that entire ebook as a PDF and keep it. There are no digital rights management software or anything attached to it that makes it expire. They're able to keep that in perpetuity. I do want to quickly note that we view course reserves, those physical reserves that students can check out for a couple hours at a time, differently. Those do help classes, but we don't view that as helping the entire class. Usually, given that either only one or maybe a couple resources exist at once. So a couple students may be able to rely on it, but not the whole class at once. All right, I will move on ahead to tip number 5.
So tip number 5 is then taking all of this great work and raising awareness about it. So students and faculty need to know what course material options exist for them, and students need to be informed about which courses have zero or low textbook costs. So we can communicate free course materials options to faculty through orientations, through workshops, through professional development programs. At UCF, we also list steps for how faculty can inform students about those free course materials, and some of those ways include listing 3 materials through UCF's official textbook adoption process, and also using syllabus statements and other course announcements to alert students about the resources that exist for them. At UCF, the library also maintains an e-textbook portal, which allows for students and instructors to search for required textbooks and to see if those are available as resources that they can access. That textbook portal links to both library resources as well as OER. And this is a powerful way to communicate, especially with students, because this portal offers an avenue for students to make requests if a course material is not listed in that portal. And that can help the library, especially, to reach out to specific instructors and say, hey, your students are really asking for a different course material option. Is this something that we can work together to help to achieve for them? Other institutions have e-textbook, ebook, OER search interfaces, including Louisiana State University, University of South Florida, and FSU. Those are all linked in the digest article. And more than anything, I think this tip really matters to keep clear lines of communication with both instructors and students, and to emphasize that the student voice matters here. As Wendy mentioned, part of the real success of the AIM program is pulling in some of our student government representation. It's so powerful when students are the ones who are sharing that these resources exist and these resources matter and are supporting those success. And when it's coming from the student voice, other students are more likely to listen. Which brings us nicely to our last tip. And Wendy, you're muted, I'm sorry.
I'm so sorry. So yeah, this is my favorite tip of all 6. So displaying savings and outcomes and recognizing achievements in this area. I think this is my favorite part of all. So yes, we do track, report, and display our savings on our website, and that's a big part of it. It helps us tell our story. It helps gain credibility. It helps get awareness. But so that is a big part of it, and I put an example in the chat just now. For our first day program, for example, we try to track and on a semesterly basis show our savings, but it's more than just displaying savings and numbers. I think it's really important to give the recognition to those faculty members who have invested so much energy, and all of the other faculty and staff who support these efforts should be recognized. It should become part of promotion and tenure. It should become part of the annual performance appraisal process to recognize these efforts. And so by displaying these types of statistics, by tracking them, it helps show that evidence to help those who are doing this hard work demonstrate what outcomes have come from it. So recognition is a very important piece of this for us at UCF. One thing that we do, I'm going to put one more link in the chat. One thing that we do is an Aim High event, an annual event that is meant to be celebratory, to recognize achievements in affordability efforts, but also to use it as a vehicle to create more awareness, which kind of builds off of Rebecca's earlier tip as well. So through recognizing their peers, faculty members who come to support them that maybe aren't aware of what's available will learn about it through this event. So we have impact awards that are awarded at this event each year. So there are 2 impact awards, one for an individual and one for a team or a department to recognize their efforts. And then we also have a Knight's Choice Award, which is completely managed and run and selected and nominated by students. And it's coordinated through SGA, or Student Government Association. So that's a really fun part of the program as well. So we have these major awards, but then we also take this opportunity to recognize all of the efforts of everybody that contributed to any activities in those 4 pillars throughout the previous year. And those names, those lists of names become very, very long, as you might imagine. So we celebrate all of that. We invite deans and chairs. The provost often gives, helps deliver the award and gives the opening remarks. So it's a really big deal that creates awareness around campus and helps build a culture around affordability for our students. We also participate in the Affordability Counts program that was started by FIU. And so our faculty members are encouraged to submit their courses to Affordability Counts, and then we work with them to put the medallion into their Canvas courses so that students can see that it is an affordable course. And then we are currently working on how we can better display that same information if it's a 0 textbook cost or a low cost course in the registration system. That's a little bit more challenging than the Affordability Counts medallion. So that is the next thing we are trying to tackle as an initiative as a team. But it's important to convey to students that they're enrolling into an affordable course or a 0 textbook cost course. So these are some of the things that we do. We also try to encourage scholarship. So through publications and presentations is another way that we can create awareness and recognize the efforts that those faculty members and staff members are doing. So these are just a few of our ideas. These are the things that we're doing, but I recognize that there may be many of you in the audience who are doing great things. And so we're looking forward to hearing and exchanging ideas with you through our next activity. So I think that goes back to Lily. Yes.
Thank you, Wendy. Yes, so we are going to do an activity now, and we're going to use Padlet. So as I'm getting it up, Rebecca is going to put the first question into the chat. And here is what it looks like. So if you have not used Padlet before, what you'll do is you'll look for that orange plus, you'll click this. And as you think about answering question 1, which is think about who is already involved in affordability efforts, who are you missing and could reach out to, you put your answer in here, and then you'll hit publish. So that is how you will engage with Padlet. So I see many people are typing. Some answers so far are more students, advisors, and again, for the student voice is so often overlooked. That is true. Undergrads specifically.
I love when we develop a consensus theme.
Yeah, we are. All librarians and instructional designers. And you can comment on these too if you want to emphasize any of them. Excellent. Well, it looks like strong emphasis towards students, so that is something good to take note of, as well as librarians and instructional designers, and then advisors is noted as well. All good points. And by the way, as we move on to question 2, I want you to be aware that when we're done, I will export all of this and put it into the conference platforms. So question number 2 that Rebecca will put into the chat. What project management tools or methodologies do you employ or hope to utilize to support affordability efforts? Notice how these questions are kind of aligning with our different tips.
How instructional design of you, Lily?
And sorry, Rebecca, that I had accidentally switched slides while you were talking. I was trying to scroll in the chat.
Your adjustment. Interesting. So, oh, there we go.
I'm going to add a suggestion to this one in case no one has seen this before. We don't use Airtable right now, but there is one for textbook affordability tracking. So if anyone from Gabrielle Hernandez, so I recommend checking that out if you have interest. Looks like someone mentioned Cotter's change management approach, Coalition of the Willing. Someone else said we use ClickUp for our ID project management, including OER efforts. And then someone says we have been using MS Planner, our Microsoft Planner, because we all have free access through Teams. We're getting ready to invest in Asana. I think that's someone from UCF. I'm excited about your getting Asana. That'll be great. Using things in Microsoft Teams is not my favorite thing, if I was not clear. And then the next person says more people getting PMP certifications in higher ed. Oh, that's a bit of a question. Yeah, that would be great. And then here's a longer one. Faculty are widely unaware of this. We're just told that students have first day, approved by the Board of Trustees over the summer with no faculty consulted. We're offered OER training, but it's purely optional. That's a significant point, that faculty are unaware and that you now have first day, but you weren't consulted about it. That's a huge impact. Okay, I see no more typing in this, so let's move on to question 3 in the interest of time. What challenges do you anticipate supporting adoption of OER or library sourced materials? So that last one that was entered into question 2 may have some additional thought. Also in our Zoom chat, there was a little bit of a discussion about who actually has the permission to choose. Some institutions like at UCF, often on a faculty basis, an individual faculty can choose what they want to adopt, but in some institutions, it's at the departmental level. Resources, time, money, staffing, cookies. Always could use more cookies and time and money. Yes, creating OER is a big time investment. Definitely check to make sure they aren't already existing out there to save you some time. More and more out there. And then I see faculty are wondering now why to go through the trouble of OER since expensive textbooks are now covered for $25 per credit hour. What I see at some institutions that have that flat fee model is that it's discussed that, okay, that flat fee model will stay low if more faculty adopt OER and don't contribute to the cost of that program. Now, what actually goes on behind the scenes and what's accurate with that, I'm unsure, but I know that that is what's discussed. I see time. We are juggling the OER responsibilities as add-on tasks. We get to it when we can. It leaves little time for significant support and leadership. Yes, we could all use more time. Speaking of time, let's go on ahead to the next question. Question 4. What challenges do you anticipate supporting adaptation or authorship of OER? This may be very similar to the
Time,
challenges we saw
money,
before.
and cookies.
Time, money, and cookies. Copyright clearance, accessibility, and cake. Someone's listening to the cookie and dessert theme. And someone quoted Rebecca, time, money, and cookies. Yeah, faculty resources like test banks, absolutely.
We see a theme. Sorry.
Yep. No, go ahead, Wendy.
No, I was just gonna say, I love when we see a theme of bribing with food. It
Yeah.
always works.
And then I see faculty buy-in. I see time. 2 years ago, I adopted an OER though, and I love it for that particular class. I'll never return to publisher materials. It is about more than money. It's about the faculty do have that control to edit and to adapt and to make it really meaningful for their course. I was
Yeah.
listening. Oh, go ahead, Wendy.
No, you.
No, I was just going to say I was listening to someone earlier talk about how a faculty member was so disgruntled how each new edition seemed to take out things they really wanted kept in the material. And an important thing about OER is that you get to retain it. So nothing's going to be removed unless you want it to be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was just going to respond to the faculty buy-in. And, one thing I hear a lot of is instructors, rightfully so, questioning the quality of the OER content. And so one way that I've seen to win faculty over is to give them some incentive for reviewing OER materials. And through the review process, it gives the original author credibility, but it also may give buy-in to the person doing the review to actually use that material because they realize, oh, wow, this really is awesome. Or they end up adapting it, saying it's 90% there, but I want to add this little bit on.
And that 10% add is always the part that's just
Exactly.
going to grow it. And I think as we keep working through these questions with each other, the adoption process is going to get so much easier just because people are adapting so many things to so many contexts. So I think the other thing to consider is just if you've looked at this stuff a year ago, let's keep looking because the community is growing and the resources are growing and getting more customers.
Absolutely. Let's move on to the next question, 5. How have you or how do you anticipate engaging with your campus library on these efforts? You might be from your library, you may not be, but this is simply a reminder how usually librarians, even if you don't have a specific textbook affordability librarian or OER librarian or scholarly communication librarian, usually a librarian or two or multiple at your campus will have that knowledge to kind of support you. So this is thinking about what will you do at your campus when this session ends this week, next week, to try to move the needle on these efforts. And then speak with your librarians about collaborating with instructional designers and others across campus and getting lots of cookies.
And copyright clearance, all of the C things.
Yeah,
Bribery.
one thing I neglected to bring up in my earlier tip, I think it was number 2, was one of the exercises we did early on when we brought everybody together was there was a great effort between the instructional designers and the librarians to kind of map out support processes and where they overlapped. So it would be sometimes faculty member just naturally goes to the library first, or they're in a communication with their instructional designer about something else and affordability comes up or OER comes up. So they might come in from different points of entry, but then knowing where you can support yourself or redirect within that process, I think is really key because as a former instructional designer, there was only so much I could do, but at a key point, I knew I needed to loop in a textbook librarian, a textbook affordability librarian into the conversation. So that mapping exercise was really helpful.
Definitely. And it looks like some have already thought about this. Being a librarian, I agree that bribery, including food and swag, will work. Moving on to our last question. With limited resources, how can you recognize affordability achievements at your institution? If I see 5 people say the Aim High event, I will know our audience.
And we have cookies there.
We do. You know what?
Yeah.
I will take this opportunity to say also that your bookstore isn't necessarily the enemy. Our bookstore manager on campus has been a great partner, and they provide foxtail coffee and baked goods at our annual event.
And raffle prizes.
And prizes and giveaways, yeah. And that's not the only reason they're a great partner, but they're actually very involved in what we do, and that is a good way to get donated food.
Absolutely.
Partnering with units on campuses with different resources.
Yes.
Some of them just happen to own coffee shops.
I see some ideas that they highlight their faculty on Twitter and in newsletters. Provost Dean recognition, student recognition. I like the 3D printed awards and trophies. That's excellent.
Yes.
Okay, well, I know we are wrapping up, so I will move back into our slides and just thank everyone for being here. We have about 2 minutes if there are any questions, but I know there was a question. The slides are in the conference platform folder, and I will export our Padlet activity probably next week and put it into the conference platform. So if you want to continue to engage with the Padlet, Rebecca put the overall Padlet into the chat. So if you want to go back to any of those 6 questions and engage with them a bit more, you still have time. And on Tuesday next week, I will upload that into the conference platform. But thank you all. Please feel free to reach out to us if you want to connect on anything.
Thank you so much. It's been really informative. I appreciate your time and efforts and helping us reach out to our faculty. Thank you.
And Jan, I hope we get to connect later because we'd like to hear more about what you're doing at UNF.
Yes,
I
definitely.
think I had the privilege on Tuesday, correct?
Oh, good.
Yes, that's right.
So we'd love to keep that connection going.
That would be wonderful. I'd love that. Road
Yes.
trip. Yeah.
Heck yeah.
Love the road trip idea. I'll bring the cookies.
And I'll bring the cake and the coffee, apparently.
I love
And
it.
the muffins. Don't forget the muffins. Well, thank you so much. Amazing ladies from UCF. Lots of food for thought. It sounds like we got some really good thoughts generating here and some new ideas for other people at other institutions. And I really do hope that you share the slides and have other people who can use them as well. So excited. Thank you again. I just shared the code for this session's treasure hunt. It is seamless_improvements. And without any further ado, I think we're going to get started with our next session next. But thank you again so much, guys, for your wonderful presentation. Big round of applause. Thank you again so much, y'all.
Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Take
Bye.
care.
Beautiful.